Good. Oh my gosh, it's so loud. I'm not used to this. Hello. Good morning. If you weren't awake yet, now, Lisa, I am.
You are now.
I am, yes. Awesome. Well, welcome to our first official Charis marriage seminar. Yay! So exciting. It's going to be a really fun, special day. I'm excited about it. My name is Sarah, and this is my husband, Neil, and we are the children and youth pastors. And Pastor Max and Molly let us be part of this today, so we're excited. Get to be upstairs for once. So you should have each received a marriage packet. Everybody needs one, so 2 per couple. If you didn't receive one, please raise your hand. Good job. Good job. Good job, Paul and Melissa. Yeah. All right. So there are pins in the seat backs in front of you. If you didn't get a pin, we do have coffee and water in the coffee room. So if you want to bring in coffee or water, you're welcome to. I know everybody goes here, but I'm just going to pretend like it's a giant conference where nobody knows stuff. So there's some bathrooms back here, and there's also bathrooms downstairs in case there's a line, ladies. So, yeah, I guess. So Max always talks about how important it is to have a joke. So I was going to share this card that I almost got Neil for our anniversary in January. It's a super sweet card. So the front, really pretty, says, "Happy anniversary to my husband. When you've been married as long as we have, you learn to accept the other person's faults. Then you open it up, and it says, you'll understand this someday if I ever develop some." I got him a different card, but I did take a picture and showed it to him. All right, well, we're going to briefly go over the schedule so you guys know what to expect.
All right, so if you want to take your packet and open it to the first page, you'll be able to see the schedule for the day. So our first session, we're going to be going over the goals of marriage and love languages. Then we'll be taking a break. You guys are welcome to come back here, refill your coffee cups, get up, stretch around, get your legs stretched a little bit. Then when we come back, we'll be having a fun door prize.
A door prize.
Like a door prize?
Yes.
Is it Max's door? Like, that would be, think of that.
It was an actual door, yes.
If it was an actual door.
An anointed door, Pastor Max's office door.
Pastor Max's office door.
Could you
can
make
have
that work?
As your.
I bet you could make that work.
You, can
you
have
have
that
tools,
as
so.
You can have it as like your bedroom door, and it's like, I'm going into Max's office, but I'm not.
Whoa, mind blown. We'll see. We'll just have to see what happens. I don't know. All right,
I might
moving
sneak
on.
his door up here. All right. Then after that, we'll be back for some more teachings with personality types and emotions.
Ooh, emotions. That's my favorite.
All right. Lunch will be downstairs in the multi-purpose room. So we'll be having some delicious soups and sandwiches ready for you guys. There will be also another fresh pot of coffee and brewing down there. And after that, we'll have some more up here, back in the coffee room, if you're a big coffee drinker. Then after lunch, we'll be coming back upstairs for a couples game. We'll have some contestants up here for that. And then our next session will be on conflict resolutions. After that little session, we will have another break and some more door prizes. And then at the end of the teaching, or end of the day, we'll be teaching on sex and apology languages.
The sex one will be your favorite.
Yep. There'll be activations throughout the sessions, so they will be done with your spouses. So if you want to move around the room to get a little bit more personal space during that, you guys are welcome to do so. And we should be done with this around 4 o'clock today.
Yes, so it's going to be really fun. So God's excited to bless you all, and I just declare over you that you have open hearts and minds ready to receive all that the Lord wants to do in your marriage. I declare passion reignited. I declare healing and unity, and just it's going to be incredible. God has really powerful things to do today. Max and Molly have been married for 17 years. 17 years. They have done incredible marriage counseling, premarital counseling for many years. I know that they've blessed a lot of your marriages already, as well as Neil and I's. And so they are just an incredible couple who, as you know, live so genuinely, and they have been graced with such an anointing and wisdom to share on this topic. So you're going to be very blessed today. So we just want you to know, Maximali, we love you. We appreciate you. You're huge blessings, and it's going to be an awesome day. So let's give them a round of applause.
Hello. Thank you so much, Neil and Sarah, and they're awesome people. Might pull me down just a little bit, Laurie. How are you?
I'm good.
Great.
Yes, I also want to thank Sarah and Neil for doing that. And I'm like, you can't tell that they're youth pastors, can you? So they were pretty funny.
All right, we're going to dive right in. Actually, let's pray. Father, thank you so much for your incredible love for us. I ask that you would just give us grace to connect with each other on a deeper level, that you would help us to understand where the other person is coming from, that you would help us to lower our defenses, make ourselves vulnerable, and learn how to communicate in healthy ways and just bind our hearts together in love. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Okay, so this is a big packet. We got a ton of stuff to go through, and we're actually right on schedule, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so Molly actually has these times written in here because, as we'll find out later, she's a C person, and I didn't write anything in mine because I'm not. And but she's going to keep us on schedule, and we're going to start off with the first page. So go to page 1 in your book here, and we're going to talk about the goal of marriage. I wish somebody had told me this when we got married, because if you don't know what the goal of something is, it's very difficult to achieve it. If you don't know where you're headed, if you don't know what direction you're trying to get to, if you're trying to get to Kansas City, you need to know that that's what you're trying to do. And so what is the goal of marriage? It's very simple. The goal of marriage is connection and intimacy with your spouse. So what you're trying to achieve in your marriage is a close, deep, intimate relationship. You're saying, you're the person that I want to know better than anybody else, and that I want to know me better than anybody else. And what we're going to do throughout this seminar is approach that and talk about different ways to achieve that goal and keep it center focus.
So I think it's real easy to hear that and kind of nod along with it and be like, okay, that makes sense. But I think it's helpful if you kind of think back and think like, well, what is the reason? Why am I married? And what's the driving force behind that? Because it might be that you got married for that reason, but then now you've switched your goal to other things. So I listed some of these things that are competing goals, and most of these are good things to want to have in life. So like raising your children, or starting a business or a ministry, or buying a house, or remodeling your house. So those are all good goals to have, and if you have a good, strong marriage, then that's a foundation that you can pursue these other goals and successfully. But if you flip it and then all of a sudden that is now your goal is to start a church or start a ministry, and then you do that, then now the marriage has kind of lost its purpose. And then there's on number 4 and number 5 are not good goals to have in marriage, being right or getting your way. And a lot of people will approach their marriage like that it's more of a competition, and it's a competition to see who's in charge and who gets to do what they want. And generally these are not goals that you think that you don't think that they're going to replace intimacy with your spouse, but they kind of creep in, and then if you're not aware of what you're trying to accomplish with your marriage, you can let one of these other things replace the goal of your marriage.
so you can be right or you can be happy. Letter B, connection and intimacy with your spouse, this is a big deal, are not magic. Now, when you first fall in love, your brain starts swimming in a sea of chemicals. And these chemicals feel amazing. It's almost like going down a water slide. And you're like, whee! I'm falling in love. It's the language we use. And the reason we use that is that there's something that feels uncontrolled about it. Like you're on, because once you're on the water slide, you've given up control a little bit. You're falling, right? And it's fun. It's joyous. But eventually those chemicals wear off, and you're left with this person, and all of a sudden you start noticing stuff about them that you didn't notice before because the chemicals were there and they were blinding you to those realities. And you have to learn how to deal with that. And so what a lot of people do is end up chasing that high over and over again. This is why people end up bouncing from one relationship to another, and because they enjoy that process of going down the water slide. But what I want to suggest to you is that you don't have to bounce from relationship to relationship, because the water slide has stairs that are attached. Yeah, come on. And so all you have to do is put in the work of climbing the stairs, and then you get the result or the reward of the fun part again. And you can fall in love over and over and over with your spouse. The feelings will come if you will follow the disciplines. Okay, so what I want to suggest to you, and I didn't like hearing this when I was younger because I'm like a romantic at heart. I used to teach Romeo and Juliet, and I still like that play. I like that. It's like, well, they're stupid kids. I know, but there's something about it I enjoy. I'm a kind of, I guess, a helpless romantic or something. I want to feel something. And it's okay to want to feel something. But what I'm going to suggest is that the feelings are not magic. They're the product of repeated, consistent behaviors. Okay? And the repeated, consistent behaviors are not complicated. They're two things. I'm going to tell them to you right here. We're going to pull back the curtain. This is the answer. This is how you climb the ladder, climb the stairs, or whatever. You do these two things. All right, here they are. Number one, they are consistent, loving actions and words which drive fear from the relationship and create safety. So what are we saying here? You're trying to consistently do things that are loving, say things that are loving. Basically, we're going to show in a minute. You're trying to do your spouse's love language. And as you do that, Scripture says perfect love casts out fear. When I have a high degree of love in my relationship, when my love tank is full, my fear will go down, and I'll be my best self. When there's high anxiety, when there's high fear, because the love level is low, people start to present their worst self. Right? And when people present their worst self, that's actually when they need love the most. But of course, that's when they're the least lovable. And so what you have to do is determine that the way you treat your spouse is not dependent upon the way that they treat you. And the reason you can do that is because you're a person that loves Jesus, and you can pull on the love of Jesus for you, and you can be a powerful person and determine that you're going to love regardless of how the other person's treating you. Does that make sense? So everybody say this with me. I'm a powerful person. My spouse's behavior does not determine my behavior. Everybody say this. I am not a victim of my spouse. Okay? Your spouse is not controlling you. You get to control you, and you get to keep your love on toward your spouse. Now, that requires an accurate understanding of who your spouse is and what they need. And so we're going to talk about that in just a minute. So, first thing is consistent loving actions, feeding their love language. I want to know, is your love tank full? Right? And then, number 2, consistent voluntary sharing of our inner world. These are our thoughts and emotions. So what this means is after I've created safety in my relationship with my spouse through the love languages and stuff, I need to practice opening up, cracking my chest open, and telling and showing my spouse what's going on inside me. Intimacy means into me you see. So your spouse needs to know what are your dreams. I want to know. If I want to be connected to you, I want to know from Molly, what are your dreams? What are your hopes? What are you afraid of? What do you like? What do you don't like? I'm interested. And vice versa. And we have to learn how to do that. Okay? So those are the two. This demystifies it. It's not magic. These are the things you do. You do these loving words and actions, and you practice intimacy, practice opening up your heart. As you do this, you do it consistently, that builds the connection. And there's all kinds of research that says if you have a deep, intimate connection with your spouse, you'll live longer, especially the man, like 8 to 10 years, statistically. You'll make more money. You'll be happier. And there's all this, and I always tell people, if you want to have a great ministry, have a great marriage. So you'll be able to bless other people, okay? So these are the things. What we're going to do throughout as Sarah said, throughout this deal is we're going to go through these different connection exercises to help build these connections. So the first one's really simple. Put the paper down, put the notes down. You're going to turn towards your spouse. You're going to hold their hand, hold their hands. You're going to look deeply into their eyes. Okay? And you're going to take turns declaring your desire to be intimately connected to them. Now use your own words, and the person that goes second can't say me too. Okay? You have to use your own words. Tell them that you want to be connected to them and why. Okay, do it real quick. Take turns. Go right now.
This reminded me of a comedian we were listening to one time, and he was talking about how his wife or his girlfriend had a lazy eye, but he couldn't tell which one it was. And so he was always worried that one day she'd be like, look into my eye, and he wouldn't know which one to look into. I was going to say one other thing about the how to have the connection and intimacy, that 1 and 2, you have to have loving actions and the sharing your inner world. And you really do have to have both of them, because sometimes we'll talk to a couple or counsel a couple, and like, let's say that they're good at doing the first one. They're good at showing loving actions to their spouse, but they're bad at showing their inner world. So they'll love their spouse intentionally, but they won't share their needs, basically. Or they'll do the other thing. They're really good at telling their spouse what they need and tell them what they want out of their relationship, but they don't do it in a loving way. So you really do have to have both of those if you want your marriage to be successful. So then we wanted to talk about the 5 love languages. If you haven't heard this topic, it comes from a book by Gary Chapman, and it's really, I was going to look up when it was. But they have a website, so he's still living and counseling and everything. So it's, in the relative recent past, this has been around, but it's pretty prolific. So a lot of different churches and non-churches use this teaching to help with marriage advice, and it really just comes down to the idea that different people have different personalities, so they give and receive love in different ways. There is more to it than that we're going to dive into, but that's just really the basic concept of it. So most people have heard about this, and I think, honestly, I don't think no one ever talked about love languages before we were married. So it was not something that was ever covered I never heard about it until after we were married, and then I had a friend that was getting married, and she talked about it. And like we said on Sunday, we knew everything when we were 19, so we didn't think we needed to know anything about love languages then. But a lot of times when so most people, I'm assuming most people have at least heard this topic. So a lot of times people are familiar at least with the concept here, but we've found when we've counseled people that they're not as good at love languages as they think they are. And even if they've heard it before, a lot of times people tend to be less intentional and less knowledgeable than they probably could be. So that's why I just wanted to emphasize that it's something still good to learn about. And honestly, we talk about love languages like all the time in our household, and there's always more to learn about it. So.
And we do this with our kids too. What do you think my second love language is, Dad? And all this. This is a very thing you talk about and grow in all the time, because I want to know. This is part of Molly's inner world. I want to know what's going on in her heart, what she needs, and so I have to ask those questions and talk about it all the time.
One thing when we do premarital counseling, and we're doing this with people and we go through the love languages, is a lot of times couples believe that they have the same love language, and it's kind of like they're riding the high and they just love to be with each other. But it's very rare for couples to actually have the same love language. And even if you like doing a lot of the same things together, if you really kind of grind it out and figure out where you're receiving the most love, you'll find out that there are differences there. So it's common for couples to think that they have the same love language, but not really have that. So I don't think we've ever met a couple that have the same love language.
People always say we have the same love language, and we always say, we don't believe you. Yeah. And we're usually right. Yeah.
Because I think even if, maybe you start with the same love language, after you've been married, you kind of differ and feel each other, become more yourself the longer you're married. So early on in the relationship, a lot of times people suppress their needs. It's like, again, you're riding this high, you're just so in love with the other person that, you don't want to have this other need that your spouse or your partner can't fill. So you just kind of stuff it, because you're riding on a high, you don't really need that. But as your relationship goes forward, that kind of comes out, and you become aware. It becomes obvious that you do have some other need that maybe your spouse and you didn't know that you even had. When we talk about this, it is helpful to know that your love language can be different depending on the relationship. So the love language that you is your primary one with your spouse doesn't mean that's the primary one with your children or your parents or your friends. And so sometimes that can be confusing when people are trying to figure out what their love language is, because they'll be like, well, I know when I'm dealing with my sister, this is how I want to be treated. Or I know when I'm at work, I don't want, I want to be complimented at work or something like that. So it can differ somewhat based on the relationship that you're in. So it's helpful as we go through today to focus on your relationship with your spouse. And another thing that I found to be true is that your love language can change over time. So it could have been that when you did premarital counseling, your love language was quality time, and then as 10 years later or 20 years later, now it's different. Now you are more of a gifts person. And I used to be. I'm still. We'll go through these. I'm still very high quality time, but I used to be very low acts of service, and now I'm like. Acts of service is right up there with quality time now, and so it can
you have
change
4
over time.
kids.
Yeah, I have lots of acts that I have to do all the time. So, and that's another thing for your spouse to know. They might, be going off what you've told them before, which is great. But today we want you to reevaluate and make sure you're still where you need to be at as far as what you're telling your spouse that you need. And then. We are going to have you guys do a quiz in a minute here. And so sometimes you'll be looking at this and you'll be like, well, both of these apply to me the same. You're like, are both of these the same? Or I would receive both of these actions the same, with the same amount of love and feel loved by both of those. And a lot of times there are like, for some people they just have one that's, their primary one. But I'd say more often people have two that are pretty high on how you feel love. So as you go through the love language quiz on the next couple pages, if you have, just try to pick between, just imagine if it was today or if it was this week and you were with your spouse specifically, which one of these would best apply to you today. And then the other thing, like when I was filling out the love language, because we practiced all this, is I thought, well, if I don't circle, I like it when you give gifts, then you'll think that I never want you to give me gifts. And so that is not what I'm saying if I don't circle one. So you're not saying that you never want your spouse to do something that you're not circling. We're just trying to give you and your spouse the best information about how you feel love.
It's like having an itch on your back, and you want your spouse to scratch it. You need to tell them specifically where it is, right? And the more information, the more feedback you give them about where it is, the more effectively they can scratch the itch.
And then one other thing we just wanted to emphasize about taking this test, even if you've done it before, there's still more to learn. Like we do talk about love languages all the time in our family, but so there's always more to learn. Even if you're good at this already, you can still learn more. So that's why we want to make sure you still fill it out and go through all the questions and really think about where you're at today.
We did it just a little bit ago in preparation for this, and we're like, oh yeah, that we had a good conversation. We learned something about each other. So take 10 minutes here on the next 2 pages, or next 3 pages, there's this test. And so don't say the answer you think your spouse wants you to say. Say the real answer, and then add up your points there. When you're done, put your paper down so that we know.
I'm going to say one other thing. So sometimes when we're talking about love languages, people make this comment. They'll say, well, my giving and receiving are not the same language. And usually that's an indication that they don't really understand what their love language is. So the test is written about how I like to feel loved specifically. So go ahead and answer it like that. So if you're thinking, well, but I like to do this for my spouse, think about what you want, how you feel loved, not how you plan to, what actions you're most likely to do to your spouse, something like that.
Great advice. All right, go for it. When you finish, you're going to be tempted to want to talk about it. I want to ask you to hold off on that because we're going to do it in a particular way. So just finish and then put your book down. looks like most of us are done. Feel free to finish up while I'm talking here, but I'm gonna, if we can pull down the music, Laurie. Okay, I'm gonna talk through these just real quickly, and then we're gonna share with our spouse. So there's these 5 different love languages. These are ways of giving and receiving love. And the challenge with it is you can send a message, I love you, but you can do it in the wrong language. And when you do that, your spouse might not receive it as love. And this creates a feedback loop problem where you're trying to say, I love you, but they're hearing, I reject you. And in premarital counseling, I always give this example. Again, nobody told us about this when we were getting married. And so growing up, my mom was always, she was a stay-at-home mom, so she's always doing the housework and stuff. And it didn't seem like my dad ever helped her. And so I thought that was bad. So I thought, I'm going to be a good husband when I grow up, and I'm going to do the dishes and stuff. And so one day, early on in our marriage, I was in the kitchen doing the dishes, feeling good about myself. So, you know, look at me, you know, I know what I'm doing here. But Molly was in the other room, and I could tell that she was unhappy. You ever notice you can tell when there's a dark presence. Something is askew over there, and I'm like, I don't understand this, because here I am, I'm doing this, I'm being a good husband. I'm literally trying to send a message, I love you. And my wife's in the other room upset with me. And come to find out, a couple years later, there's these different ways of receiving love. One of them is acts of service, which is what I was doing. And at the time, that was very low for Molly. But what was very high was quality time, which did not register for me. And what she wanted was for me to be in the same room as her. Now, to me, I'm low on quality time. And so it seems irrational to me that it would make you feel loved for us to be in the same room, even if we're not doing anything. It's like we're both on the computer. Why do we need to sit by each other? It doesn't achieve anything, but from my perspective. But so here's the deal. I was trying to send a message, I love you, but I was actually sending a message, I reject you, because I was in the other room. And so what love does, love says, I will adapt how I'm treating you to make sure that you feel loved. Hello. Okay? Pride says, I'm sending a message that I love you. You just better receive it the way I send it. Okay? Now you're all nodding at me, but I've marriage counseled many people. And I'm telling you, this is a common problem. People say to me, well, but I did A, B, and C for you. Okay? And when you're saying, well, I did A, B, and C, they better feel loved. No. You do not get to dictate to your spouse what makes them feel loved. I'm pausing for dramatic effect, all right? So for emphasis, you don't get to control their emotions. So you have to humble yourself and be willing to adapt how you're treating them, because what I want is I want you to feel my love, not just intellectually acknowledge that you love me. Okay? Because unless you feel the love, your anxiety's not going to drop, and you're not going to be your best self, and you're not going to feel safe to share with me your inner world. So if you want your spouse to share their inner world with you, you have to learn to speak their love language. And it's difficult to learn a different language. Who's ever tried to learn another language? Anybody multilingual? Okay, so it's hard, right? And if you talk to somebody in that other language who's fluent in it, you're going to sound awkward at first, right? But most of the time, if you go to a different country and you're trying to speak their language, most of the time people will have grace with you and patience because they realize what you're doing is hard.
Except maybe France.
Except maybe France, because
I just know that from television.
Okay. I don't know. I've never been there. But anyway, so what you have to do is recognize if your spouse is trying to speak your love language and it doesn't come naturally to them, they may not do it well at first. But the fact that they don't do it well at first does not mean that it's insincere or fake. It's a huge deal, what I just said there. Does not mean it's insincere, doesn't mean it's fake. In fact, if it's awkward and they're struggling, the fact that they're willing to struggle and embarrass themselves trying to speak your language, that means they love you. Hollywood teaches you this garbage that if it's love, it'll be natural. No, it won't. If it's love, it has to be hard because love is sacrifice. And if it's easy for me to speak your love language and do stuff that makes you feel loved, and it's just so easy, it's so easy, Pastor, we have such natural chemistry or whatever. How do you know they really love you? Because they aren't doing nothing hard. Amen or oh me?
And it's also not, it's not fake if you have to tell them what you need. Because that's the other thing that, they're like, well, I shouldn't. They only got me flowers because I told them that makes me feel loved. Well, that doesn't mean that that they're being insincere or being fake. That means they're listening to what you say you need and doing that.
Which is what you want. So none of this games of, well, they should just know what's going on inside. They don't know. No one knows. You don't know. They don't know what's going on inside your heart. I used to think I did. I'm like women are mysterious or whatever. I was raised by women. I don't understand women. I don't understand nobody. I don't understand men. I don't understand women. I barely understand myself. So you got to tell me. All right. So real quickly, let's go through the love languages. First one, physical touch. This means you feel loved when you are touched in a healthy, affectionate way. And it's almost like physical touch people have a meter running on their heart, and their anxiety level is increasing based on the last time they were touched in a healthy, loving, affectionate way. And so their anxiety is rising, and so they've got to allay their anxiety, so they're like, can you hold my hand? I have two or three daughters that are this way. They're out playing, they're running, they're doing stuff. They got to come back and hug mom or dad, touch mom or dad, sit on her lap for a little bit, and then they go out and play again. All right, what is that about? It's them resolving the anxiety, feeling safe, get your love tank filled again so you can go back out into the world and deal with stuff. So this is not sex. Now, if you're a high physical touch person, sex, you'll enjoy it even more than, normal. but it can't just be that, particularly for women that are high physical touch. It has to be non-sexual a lot of times. So that's a big deal. The kiss of death for these people is if I'm reaching out to you and I want to hold your hand and you got to do it more violently. Jerk away.
Don't touch me.
Don't touch me.
Don't touch me. I'm hot.
I'm hot.
Scoot away. Scoot away.
So at that point, the knife goes in. It's like, okay, because physical touch people, if I'm reaching out and want to touch you, the question isn't just so much, can I touch you? It's, do you love me? Okay? And so you want the answer to that question to be yes. Now, it doesn't mean you always have to let a 2-year-old sit on your lap, or it doesn't mean you always have to give your spouse a back rub or something, but it means that if they're reaching out for touch, you have to recognize in your brain, if your spouse is a high touch love language person, if they're reaching out, they're saying to you, I need affection. Okay? And so you want to figure out a way to help them, even if it's struggling a little bit there. So I got to speed up because I got to go faster. Okay. Quality time. These people feel loved when they have your time and attention. They want to be in the same room as you, but really what they want is you to be present. Pay attention. This is what made my wife fall in love with me, is I listened to the stuff she was telling her, and I was able to repeat back to her and remember things she told me. She's like, oh, this guy really likes me. Quality time people, a lot of times, they want to tell you in detail about their day. Because if you're apart, they want you to have been there with them during the day, and the way that you can fix that is to tell you in detail about all the stuff, and that brings you back into alignment. It ticks that off, okay? The kiss of death for those people is when they're trying to connect with you and have quality time, and you're being distracted. You're not paying attention to what they're trying to share. You're on your phone. You're listening to something else. Man, that's painful to those people. Acts of service people, they feel loved when they receive help, getting with the help of things that they want help with. So this is simple, but acts of service people, they look out there, they see all the tasks that they've got to do, all the stuff that's got to be accomplished, and they feel anxiety about all the different tasks, and they think, who is going to help me get this stuff done? And if they get help getting some of the stuff done that they want help getting done, then they feel loved. The kiss of death for those people is if they don't get any help, or here's the tricky part, or they get help with something that they didn't want help with. So the classic thing I always use in this story is I marriage counseled a couple, and they're about to have their third kid, and the wife, she really wanted him to go and put the third car seat in the back of the car to make sure it would fit. And he said, I know it'll fit. And she said, but I really want you to go put it in there so I know it'll fit. And he said, but I cooked you lobster last night. And I said, man, I'm going to tell you something. If I'm you, when we leave here, I'm going home and I'm immediately getting that car seat and I'm sticking it in there. Because she's telling you where the itch is. Just scratch it. She's giving you great information. Just do it.
I'd say along with that, the kiss of death is just telling them that, oh, that's not important to do anyway, or try to disregard it. So that would be another thing.
Amen.
Yeah.
That's a big deal. That's not what you want to say to an active service person, because it is a big deal. What are you talking about? I got to get this done. Words of affirmation people. These people feel loved when they are complimented about things that they value. So this is me. Words of affirmation people are usually, you can usually identify them. They're great at giving out compliments. Oh, you're awesome. You're awesome. You're awesome too. I love you. You're great. They're more sensitive to tone than people that are, so a low words person, if you're low words, you sound harsh to us, and you don't notice, but we notice. Okay? The kiss of death for words people is criticism. We struggle to receive criticism. If we're a words person, this is why Molly reads the hate mail that comes to the church. Because if I read it, the words get stuck in my head and I have a hard time processing it because the words are painful. Last one's gifts. Gifts people feel, did you have something you were going to say? Oh, no. Gifts people feel loved when they receive a physical token of affection symbolizing the fact that they are known and thought about. It's not about the money. It's about, oh, you know me and you were thinking about me when we weren't together. Ooh, that feels good. That warms my heart. How do I know you love me? Look at these flowers. Every time I look at these flowers, that means my spouse was thinking about me. I feel so good. The kiss of death for those people is forgetting their birthday, forgetting their anniversary, not getting them a gift when they wanted one, even if they said, oh, I don't need anything. It's a trap.
And again, it's not about getting them something expensive or big. It's about remembering them and thinking about them.
And if you have that love language, you're not selfish to want something. In fact, all these love languages, everybody, we always have this in marriage counseling. Everybody's like, well, my love need is dumb. Or my love need is selfish. Or my love need is immature. Or whatever. No, stop. Your love need is what it is. The sooner you quit feeling bad about it and communicate it to your spouse, the sooner you'll be happy. All right, that's all I have time to say about that.
Okay, so then we're going to do another connection exercise and taking from the results of the love language test that you did. So I'm going to explain it first, then we're going to model it real quick. So we will start just for consistency's sake. We'll start with all the husbands. We'll get to ask the question first. So you're going to be in that same position, posturing that you're in, where you're looking at each other in the eye, and the husband's going to say, what do you need from me in order to feel loved? And I do want you guys to ask it like that. So I don't want you to say, well, what's your love language? I really want you to say it like this because the question matters, and we are asking what they need from each other, what they need from us to feel loved. And then the wife's going to respond to them as authentically as they can, putting it in your words and everything. You can, if there's a specific example that you can think of, something they've done in the past. So that's really helpful for your spouse to hear. If you can be like, for example, like when you helped me, when you helped me with that chore, that made me feel really loved. Or when you complimented me that way, that made me feel really loved. So if you can think of something that they've already done that was really good, that's great feedback for your spouse because then they know what they can do more of. And then after you've done that, think back to that test that you just did and then pick a couple things from that like were really easy, obvious yeses for you to circle. So what things were like, oh yeah, definitely this thing, whatever that is. And then give your spouse a couple of, tell what those were to your spouse so that they know some really good ways to make you feel loved. And then after that, then we will tell you guys to switch, and then you'll switch roles, and then you'll repeat it with the wives asking their husband what they need to feel loved.
So we're going to model it.
Oh, I was going to say about look at my notes. So when Max and I did this, and then we said, okay, pick a couple things that really jumped out to you. Both of us picked things that were not our top love language. So I don't know if that we're just weird with that, but. I just did the test, and I'm second lowest on words, and that was what I picked. I like when Max compliments me, and then Max is pretty low on quality time, and he picked one to go on extended trips. So even if they're one-offs, that's still you're not being contradictory. You're just being honest with your spouse and telling them what you really need.
That's good.
All right. So.
Yeah, you're supposed to ask me.
All right. Oh yeah. So, Max, what do you need from me in order to feel loved?
I need you to tell me that I'm awesome. So I need you to use, not just tell me that I'm, doing okay, but really, use almost hyperbolic language to talk about how great I am. I need you to praise me about my accomplishments and my ideas. I need you to think that I'm smart and interesting. I need you to touch me a lot. I need you to have sex with me a lot. and so on this thing, some stuff that stuck out at me was number 26E. Kissing me unexpectedly makes me feel loved. Like sometimes randomly you'll come up to me and make out with me, and that's awesome. And 16E, I like for you to touch me when you walk by. 15A, I like you to compliment my achievements. So those are all good things. Okay? So everybody saw how I was embarrassingly honest there. Okay? So that's how you need to do it. Okay, so we release you. Wives first, then husbands. Or sorry, husbands ask the question first. Yeah, do both people. So if you get, the husbands ask the question, and then wives, don't skip asking the question. So be a powerful person, saying, what do you need from me? Okay, we're going to take a quick stretch break here. You can finish your conversation. The reason we do that way is we want you to practice communicating that you have needs and asking what the other person's needs are. So take 10 minutes, go to the bathroom if you need to. While you're doing that, or when you get back, just real quickly fill in this bottom part about how you're going to love your spouse, and then how you're going to remind yourself of their needs. But be back here at 10:20, based on that clock right back there.
All right, if you guys want to take your seat, please. Great stuff so far. Praise God. All right, now to mix it up, we're going to do a super fun door prize.
All right. So we wanted to do a little door prize for you guys. That way you guys can have, we're already doing a little couple seminar, be able to have a nice little date night out for you guys. That way, it's, the men like their food. Women like the time with them. So we're going to do a little date night for you guys. So let's go ahead and hear what our date night door prize is. So let's hear it from our announcer back there. Laurie, if you want to go ahead and hit that first slide. Oh. No.
Our announcer is still on break. We will announce to calming music.
This prize can satisfy any craving from Italian, seafood to steak. You'll come away stuffed when you enjoy this gift card from Down Under.
Yeah.
All right.
Let's see who our lucky prize winner is.
Josh and Nicole.
Rob and Joanna Windler. Yay! Congratulations. You're our first prize winner. All right, and back.
All right, we're going to start session 2, page 7. So we're still talking about developing intimacy and connection and all that, but a lot of this hinges on knowledge of who our spouse is. And we need to know their love language, but we also need to know some stuff about their personality and who they are and how their personality is structured. So that's what this session is about. Families, not just couples, but entire families and church families, individual families, they're all composed of different people, and they come from wildly different backgrounds, personalities, ideas, and stuff. And doing family God's way requires us to shift from just celebrating what's the same about us to being able to celebrate the differences. And this is when you know that you've entered into some degree of maturity in your marriage. Early on in your marriage, like when Molly and I were dating, we were in high school driving around in my 2000 Mitsubishi Eclipse 5-speed, which I later traded in for a minivan. I was a 2000s black. I could go real fast, Spencer. The Mini, Yeah. Yeah, it's newer, that's right. But anyway, I remember actually being nearby the Parsons Theater, which is, it was a 5-plex in our small town. And we were talking about Spider-Man, the movie. Remember the original one with Tobey Maguire, and how much we both liked that movie. And I'm like, and she's like, oh yeah, my whole family loves Spider-Man, and it's like a religion. And I'm like, you like comic book movies? And I'm like, I like Spider-Man. I'm like, we're the same. And so this is what we do. We're like, oh, you're so cool. You're like me. We're the same. We're the same person. And you celebrate the stuff you have in common, which is only natural. And all those chemicals we talked about at the beginning that begin to swim, your brain swims in your love chemicals and all this, it causes this thing to happen where both partners moderate their personalities such that you are closer together than is actually fully true. Now, you're not being deceptive. It's just that when you're in love initially, you're focused on what you have in common, and you kind of have low incentives to show the person stuff where you might differ.
You just show them the part that's like them because you're so much alike. So
That's right. And there's actually a lot of research about this. If you want to get people to like you, you're supposed to do this thing called mirroring, which is where you mirror their body language. And so it's a way to get people to like you and stuff. If you're in sales, they probably teach you some of that stuff. But anyway, so here's the thing, though, is that you go through life, and then the chemicals start to ebb, and people start to feel safe in the relationship. You've been married. I mean, Molly and I have been married 17 years now. We're not going anywhere, okay? And so at this point, some of the differences start to show up because you start to be more comfortable being yourself, start to display some of your maybe less attractive behaviors, these kind of things. And after a while, people can look at each other and they're like, you've changed. And probably they haven't changed. It's just that they're being more themselves. Does that make sense? And so there comes this need to shift in marriage from just celebrating what is the same to celebrating what is different. So it's not just that I love that you love Spider-Man. It's for Molly, as we're going to go through this stuff, Molly's a very organized person, and she has a great desire to put things in order and structure and all this kind of stuff. And I have come to honor and esteem that and see how necessary and cool that is, even though sometimes it makes me feel restricted. Okay? You going to say something?
oh no.
No? Okay.
Well,
All right, I'm sorry.
I didn't have something. Sorry.
I thought, well, no, I just thought you were going to say something. So, but anyway, in significant relationships like marriage, what often attracts people to each other also drives us crazy. So it's this whole thing about, you're different than me. Look how weird this person. I mean, they're totally opposite of me. They don't think like me.
They're exotic.
They're exotic.
Yeah.
That's right. Look at
Yeah.
this exotic creature over here. I'm into this, but then you're married to them, and then the exotic creature is in your house. And it's not the same as when it's in the zoo. It's you understand? It's not. It's then you're confronted with all these different things. The stuff that drew you together also sort of drives you nuts. And so this whole house of God is built on the principle of honor and learning to connect with the differences and honor the differences. So.
The learning this DISC personality profile it's really been so helpful in understanding how to relate to Max, but also how to relate to other people, because how to relate to my children, how to relate in a workplace, and there's a lot of different personality typing and testing out there, and a lot of them have different. There's different benefits to different ones, but this one, the reason that we use this is because it's really helpful in regards to relationships. So that there's some personality profiles out there that are like aimed at like helping you find what kind of job you want to be in and stuff like that. But this one is really helpful, helping you to relate to one another and helping you to honor the other person. So what is this? All right. Okay, so when we go through this, one thing to keep in mind is that there's not a personality that's better than other personalities. There's not like the best one to have. All of them have different benefits and weaknesses to their personality type, and it really just shows that different personality types are viewing the world through different ways, and all those ways are valid and helpful. So just because someone else sees the world differently than I do and values things differently than I do, it doesn't mean that there's something wrong about them, and that I have the right way and they have the wrong way of viewing things. It's not that they're flawed because they view the world a different way. Their perspective is helpful and their perspective is valid, and it's beneficial for me to recognize that and then recognize that it is helpful. Because I naturally, when what comes naturally to me, I'm missing out on a lot of things. And so I need to honor people that see things differently because they see things I don't, and I can learn things from them. And as your marriage goes on, you start off and you're celebrating your similarities, and as you go on, you realize you have more differences than you thought you did. And in a real successful marriage, this is really good because this allow in a safe relationship that allows you to be yourself the most, and so then you can kind of grow into your strengths better, and not have to hide parts of yourself from your spouse to keep them, to pretend that you're more like them. So this really helps you be more successful with everything. And then, so we talked about with the love languages. Sometimes that varies by what relationship that you're talking about. And I would say more so your personality type kind of varies based on your situation. So a lot of jobs, a lot of different professions kind of are suited to different personality types. And even if one of those doesn't come naturally to you, you might be really good at your job. And so if you're not an organized person, but your job requires you to be that, you can get to the point that you're really successful doing your job. But that probably means that you're different in your workplace than you are at home. And so as we go through this, think about how it is when you are in your relationship with your spouse, or how you are at home, not necessarily how you are at work, because that can be a big difference. Or maybe your job requires you to be more of a leader because you're in a leadership role, and then at home you're maybe not like that. So that can kind of confuse people too, because they think, well, I have both ends of the spectrum here, and you do, because everyone can be any of these personalities if they're intentional about it. But there is one that comes more naturally to you than the others.
The best way to think about that is if you hold your fingers like this, how long can I do this? Pretty much to eternity, because it doesn't take much effort, right? So we're going to go through these different types of personalities. There's one place on here for me. Being an I person is like this. I can be myself. I can stand up here. I could sit here till Jesus comes back and make jokes and talk in front of people. It doesn't make much effort to do that. If I have to do paperwork, I can do it. But it's like wrapping a rubber band around here. And so I have to pull it apart, and I can do it, right? But it takes effort. It's costing me energy, so I can't do it forever. Does that make sense? So what we're going to go through this beautiful chart here. Who has seen the disc or done a disc before? A lot of people in here. A lot of people haven't. This is just like the love languages in that we're gaining information about ourselves and about our spouses, and there's always more to learn about it. So I would just encourage you to, even if you know a lot about this, to still think about it. And again, like Molly said, think about it in context of your relationship with your spouse, not at work. When do I have to be done talking through all these?
Uh, 10:55. So you got 20 minutes to go through
20
them
minutes.
all.
Okay, all right. We're going to do this in 20 minutes. So the first way to look at this is dividing it into, you go to the next page there, page 8, is to look at it from the left and the right and top and bottom. So the people that are furthest apart are diagonal from each other. So I's are opposite of C's and D's are opposite of S's. Doesn't mean they can't relate. In fact, usually they end up marrying each other. Usually, if you're an I person, you marry a C person. Usually, if you're a D person, you marry an S person. Not always, and it's also true that if it's your second marriage, a lot of times it's not that way because you already married your opposite, and then you sometimes will want to marry somebody that's a little bit different. So it doesn't always work that way, but a lot of times it does. So the people on the left half of the circle have more similarities than, you understand, the closer you are, the more similarities you have, okay? So the people on the left are task people. They're task oriented. So that does not mean that they don't care about people or don't like people. It means they get energy from completing tasks. This is very useful information to have. Molly is a task person. That means that to get energy and to feel good about life, she needs to get the tasks done. If there's a bunch of laundry that has to be done, she feels anxiety if it's not getting done. And so as a good husband, I want to help her and create context for her to get some tasks done so that she can feel like she has accomplished something and had a good day. If you ask a person on the left half of the circle, how was your day? They will likely describe to you the things that they have accomplished. The right half of the circle people are people. They're people-oriented. That means they gain energy from talking to people. That doesn't mean they can't do tasks, but it means that the tasks cost them energy. Left half of the circle people are great at talking to people, just costs them energy.
Sometimes people will be like, well, I don't think I'm on the left side because I really like people. And it doesn't matter. This isn't about whether you like people or not or whether you're caring or anything like that. It is talking about what gives you energy.
That's right. Molly loves people. Her whole job is people. She's a physical therapist. Talks to people all day long, okay? But you're a task person. Mm-hmm. You get energy from doing the tasks, and you see the tasks first. So people on the right, I's and S's, they see people first. They get energy from talking to people. Okay, top half of the circle people. These are your D's and I's. These people like life to happen at a faster pace. They make decisions quickly, and they tend to work in bursts of energy. So they work really hard, and then want to take a break. Work really hard, and want to take a break. They enjoy spontaneity more. People at the bottom half of the circle are the opposite. They want life to happen at a slower pace. They want things to be more methodical. They want to have a plan. They want to write the plan down and then stick to the plan. And it's like, in the top half of people are like, hey, what if we did this? And the bottom half are like, well, but we already wrote the plan. Okay? People at the bottom half, they're great at working consistently throughout the day. They're not burst of energy people. They're just slow and steady people. And I always use this analogy. When Molly and I lived in Colorado Springs, we lived in this house. And in Colorado Springs, man, it's dry. It's hard to keep grass alive. So a lot of people do this xeriscaping or don't do much with their yards, and the weeds go like crazy. And so we would go out to pull weeds. So if you're a top half of the circle person, you're like me, here's what I would do. I would run around in a frenzy, finding the biggest darn weeds I could get and just shoving them in a bag. And I'm like, man, I'm accomplishing a lot and I'm doing it fast. Look, I'm getting rid of all these weeds and put up all the weeds. Molly literally sat down on one area and just methodically pulled all the weeds in this one area. So there's like this one little area and it's perfect. And it's all done. And after about 20 minutes, I'm like, well, that was some good weed pulling. Can we do something else? And Molly's like, what are you talking about? Look at all this. We gotta keep going. She's ready to just stay at it a couple hours, you know. She's more methodical. I can't take it. I'm bored. I need to move on. Okay? So that's the top and bottom. So you should be able to identify mostly where you are here. So how many left half of the circle people do we have? Left half, task people. Oh, it should be more than that. Task people, okay, good, okay. How many people do we have? Okay, all right. How many top half people do we have? Okay, how many bottom half people do we have? Okay, all right. Very good. So you should have some inkling where you are on the spectrum here just from that. But we're going to go through each of these individually and understand them better. So there are some people that are D people, and that stands for dominance. These are direct people. They're results-oriented. They're competitive. Their motto is, just do it. So if you ask a D person, when are we going to make this decision? They say, I already decided. What do you mean when I decided? We're just going to do it. How are we going to do it? It doesn't matter. Just get it done. Just do it. They're motivated by the desire to win and feel significant. They fear insignificance. So they were born for that. They know they were born to be in charge, to be a leader. They like come out of the womb and they're going to be in charge of something. So these are the people. They're kids. You know, I've got maybe a couple girl. My third one's a D person, and so it's hard because she's the third one and she's born to be in charge, but she's got 2 older siblings. So, you know, so she's in charge of her little sister.
Who was also a D person.
Who's also a D person.
It would seem, at least at 2 years old.
And so it is quite interesting watching that. They're decisive, they're direct, they're very determined, they make decisions quickly, they go into an environment and they're wondering who's in charge. Not in a bad way, but they want to know who's the boss. And if nobody's the boss, hey, I'll be. And there's an authority vacuum, I'm drawn to the vacuum. Now, it doesn't mean that I have to be in charge. It just means I'm drawn to it. Okay? And D people can be great followers, but they're gonna push the boundaries of where their authority ends. I have a lot of D people that work for me. I love it because they're independent and they'll do stuff. I just sometimes have to tell them, don't have to do that much because that's where your authority ends, you know. But anyway, they're born to be in charge. They hate injustice. It's one way you can tell if you're a D person. It's like the injustice of it. This is my iris, you know, it's not fair. Deeply disturbed by the injustice. Under pressure, this is the hard thing for D people to hear. This is what D people do not want to hear. Under pressure, D people can appear angry. Now, what they want more than anything is for you to know that they're not angry. and that they're not an angry person. But nevertheless, to the rest of the people, they can sometimes appear that way. And this bothers them deeply because that's not what they're trying to communicate. But what D people have is they have a higher threshold for conflict than the other personality types, especially the S people. S people, as we'll get to in a minute, don't want the boat to rock at all. D people were born to rock the boat. Okay? Yes. Hallelujah. They always end up married to S people. And so the thresholds are different. And the D person's like, what? We're not fighting. But it doesn't feel that way to the S person. Does that make sense? They fear being insignificant, and they live in objective land, and what I mean by that is goal land. So they're very goal-oriented. So a D person, like my pastor is a very high D person. Pastor Lawson. And so like you'd be talking to him, and he would, you know, if you're just chatting, he might just leave, like in the middle of the conversation. It's a classic high D trait. And it's like, man, that was rude. The S person's like, did I offend him? What happened? Okay, nothing happened. He suddenly remembered a goal. And the chatting had nothing to do with winning. No objective was being achieved. And so I had to leave. I had to go achieve the objective. Didn't mean to offend anybody. So D people, as they become self-aware, usually are great apologizers. Because they have to apologize, usually more than than the S people do. It's not because they're bad people. It's just this is their personality. They were born to rock the boat, and we need those people. Okay, they're helpful people.
And I just Max mentioned this briefly. Just because you're a D person doesn't mean you can't. It doesn't mean you have to be the leader in a situation. It doesn't mean you can't be a good server. But specifically, your personality type doesn't determine whether you should be in a leadership role or not. So I've had, like in the workplace, I've had bosses that were D people, and I've had them that were I and C. I've had and even that were S. And being a D person doesn't mean that you're even a better leader. And so certainly if you're not a D person, it doesn't mean that you shouldn't be in a leadership role. And if you are a D person, it doesn't mean that you shouldn't be in a servant role.
Probably your best boss was an S person.
Yeah.
So anyway, so any of these personalities, they all have strengths and weaknesses. So you just have to learn where you are, and you work your strengths and you outsource your weaknesses. So
you recognize your weaknesses first. Recognize you
have some. Right? So that's a big deal. Become self-aware enough to know what you're not good at, and then let other people do that stuff. So that's why all the stuff here about the administration stuff is mostly done by other people than me, because I'm the next personality, which is I people. So D people, their motto is have fun doing it. Or excuse me, D people say just do it. Just get it done. The quicker we get it done, the better, because then we can move on and do something else. And then we've achieved a whole bunch of stuff, and then somebody will erect a monument in our name, and we'll live in immortality. I people say this: we got to have fun doing it. Because if it's not fun, man, we can't make it. We're not going to make it. We fear boredom. If there's personalized hells for I people, it's boring. You have to sit in a room and not ever think about anything interesting or talk to anybody interesting. No jokes, nothing. That's suffering. I people want to be free. Freedom! And I paint half my face blue and, be Braveheart. We're idea people. We love ideas. We love talking about ideas. We love listening to other people's ideas. We're very interested in people. I want to read about quantum physics. I want to read it. What's interesting? Do I understand it? No, but I'm going to read about it. I'm going to read about the royal family. Why? I don't know. I don't care about their lives, but it's interesting. It's on Yahoo News. I'm going to read about it. I know a ton of stuff about a lot of weird stuff. Yeah, because I'm interested. And I want to talk to you about it. And I need to hear that you like my ideas, that you're interested in my ideas. I don't really want my ideas analyzed that much for feasibility. That's not the point. The point's to marvel at the beauty of the idea. Whether or not it's feasible. I don't need the bean counters telling me whether or not I can do it. I'm just interested. How cool would it be to live on a colony on Mars? I mean, it would. I mean, think about that. It's interesting. They're charming. They're charismatic. They're persuasive. Get a great eye person, they can be a great salesman. Right? They're people. I people respond to, so D people respond to pressure a lot of times by becoming angry. I people respond to pressure through unwarranted optimism or unwarranted trust of people. So I people are such people that if they're under pressure, they're like, I'm going to find somebody to trust. Even if they're not trustworthy, we're just going to do what this guy says. Or they'll do this unwarranted optimism. It's like, oh, it'll be fine. It's like the airplane's going down. The airplane is crashing. You know what? We might land on a trampoline. And we'll bounce back up. And it'll be okay. We fear restrictions, rules, and not being noticed. We want to be admired. We live in idea land. D people live in objective or goal land. I people live in idea land. Everybody okay? All right, S people, next group of people. Who are my S people? Raise your hand if you know you're an S person. Okay, everybody, there should be more. Okay, so everybody look at those people. Raise your hand, look at those people. Okay, if you don't like those people, you're a jerk. The reason is that S people, their motto is do it together. And S people, more than any other personality, are trying to compromise and do what is necessary to draw people together. Okay, they are the glue of society. They really want everybody to get along and accomplish something together. They want to sing Kumbaya. And isn't it not, man, we achieved this together. Isn't that beautiful? They need to hear that their connection with you is strong and that there's no hidden animosity. They're thinking about their relationships all the time. Their connections with other people. They're thinking about other people. They're thinking about these connections. Are we good? Are we good? The D person's like, what do you mean, are we good? Of course we're good. I would tell you. If we weren't good, you'd know. The I person's like, what do you mean, are we good? We're having fun, aren't we? But the S person they want to connect. Let's sit down here. Let's all have a meal together. They want peace and stability. They just want to be on a gondola, floating pristinely. Just everything is good.
No boat rocking.
No boat, don't rock the boat. Just, no conflict. S people respond to stress by withdrawing or freezing, becoming emotionless. And you say to an S person, are you okay? Yes. I'm fine. Okay, why are they doing it? So we all have fight or flight reflexes, right? So depending on your personality, now we can all do all of them, but what's a D person more likely to do? Fight. What's an S person more likely to do? Flee. Right? Withdraw.
And sometimes they'll say fight, flight, or flee, or freeze.
Or free. Yeah, free.
Yeah.
The truck's coming.
You just freeze.
They're like a deer, in the headlights. They fear disconnection from loved ones and confrontation and or letting people down. D people, a lot of times, will run towards confrontation. It really just doesn't bother them. Now, if you do confrontation well, nobody likes it. But D people usually can handle it. They have a higher threshold of it than S people. S people really struggle to do confrontation, but here's the thing about it, S people. As you learn to do it, you end up being some of the best. Okay, because you're thinking about the other person, not just you. And so D people, here's what happens in marriage is D people, you can learn from S people how to do the confrontation in a more healthy way. And S people, you can learn from D people to do the confrontation. They live in connection land. All right, last person is the C people. Their motto is, do it right. Do it right. So D people, just get it done. Doesn't matter how we do it. I person says, have fun doing it. Tell some jokes. S person says, let's do it together. But the C person says, boy, it's got to be accurate. We got to do it the right way. And it doesn't matter if anybody's watching. See, C people a lot of times make the best employees because C people will do it right whether anybody's watching or not. Because what doing it right is its own reward. They love order, structure, processes. They want things to make sense, to be thorough and accurate. These people don't exaggerate. So this is why Molly's a C person. That's why I tease her. So it's like I ask her, how was the sermon? And she'll say, it was good. And see, I'm an I person, so I need like hyperbolic praise. But it was good. It was accurate. She's giving me an accurate assessment. It wasn't in your top 10, but it was good. You know? They love to make lists. If you're a list person, you've got some C in you. They love crossing the stuff off the list. They need to hear that they did a good job and that the process by which they did the job was awesome. Okay, so it's like, man, you did it the right way. It's not just that you got it done. The D person, man, good job getting that done. Now, for a C person, it's like, man, I loved the way you did that. I could tell you really put a lot of thought into creating that process, doing it that way. They respond to stress through analysis loops or the quest for more data. What's that mean? It's like I'm under pressure. I need more data. I need to figure out what's going on here. And you can get stuck in that loop, that processing loop. They fear being wrong more than the other one. I people don't mind being wrong. An I person, well, because all they care about is making you laugh, they're happy to tell you about all the stuff that they've done wrong because it'll be funny. They'll tell an embarrassing story about themselves more easily. C person struggles to do that as easily because when they're wrong, when they do something wrong, they feel wrong more than particularly I people. They live in concrete land, so they're thinking about stats and data and is stuff feasible. And of course, they always end up married to I people. So they're always looking at the I people, and the I people is like, we should go on a worldwide tour. We should go to this place and this place and this place. We should look at all this. We should get this vacation. This cruise is going to be amazing. And the C person's thinking, where's the money coming from? Who's going to watch the kids? And the I person's like, oh, no, we're just talking about ideas here. All right. Am I doing okay? I got to hurry.
Yeah.
I'm not doing great.
Not doing great.
Okay. Accurate statement. I'm supposed to be done now.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll just skip this. Well, I'll do this just real quickly. I'm going to read this. I's and C's a lot of times end up married. I people want their ideas to be valued for its creativity and beauty, not necessarily analyzed. I read that. C people want stuff to get done. The I people, okay. So the C people get frustrated with the I people because the I people talk too much and achieve too little. I people get upset with the C people because the C people are trying to control us and restrict our freedom. Okay? D people and S people fight. D people get mad because they're trying to be helpful. And the way they're helpful is they make suggestions. This is how you know a D person loves you. They tell you how to rearrange your furniture. But S people find the suggestions stressful. D people want S people to engage, but S people usually withdraw. S people want to keep the connection strong between everyone and be nice to everyone. And other personalities are usually more okay with just cutting people off. Okay, I did that real quick. Molly's going to talk you through the connection exercise.
Okay, so I looked for a couple. All right, I looked for some like a DISC personality test, but I didn't find any that I thought were that helpful. So instead, what we're going to do is we're going to take a few minutes to talk to your spouse and talk through the different personality types. And talk about what you think describes you most and which things resonated with you. You're like, oh yeah, that's me. Talk specifically about what you feel like motivates you through the day, what drives you, what you need to feel successful. And then I do want your spouse to point out anything about your personality that they saw in you, because that's really helpful. Because I mean, sometimes we'll do these tests. I'm like, I don't know, what do you think? Because your spouse is they're with you all the time, and sometimes you don't see things about yourself. And then if there's been any conflicts or differences of values that you've had in the past, you're like, oh, that's why. That's what was going on during that situation, and you can talk about that. So we'll give you guys like 5-10 minutes to talk through that.
Go for it. Okay, we got a lot of good conversation going on, but we can always come back and talk about this more. We want to make sure we get through everything. So just in summary, the reason we go through all that, there's a lot of different reasons. One is we can understand each other better, so you have more grace. Just because somebody has a different personality type than you does not mean that they need inner healing. Okay, it doesn't mean there's some fundamental flaw with them. Now, they may need inner healing, but it's not because they have a different personality type than you. Okay? The other thing is you recognize, okay, this is who my spouse is. They're not exactly like me. I have to celebrate the stuff about them that is not like me. Not just the stuff that is like. Now, there is stuff that's, Molly and I are very similar in a lot of ways, but there's stuff about her, so I have to learn how to celebrate the stuff that's different.
And, it really helped me to recognize, like, the thing that gives you energy, and that's helped us both a lot. Like, to recognize that, for me to have a good day, I need different things than Max does. And, so, he needs to have spontaneity to have a good day, basically. And, I need to have order, and we can have both. It's like one example is, like, I'll do a meal plan for the week and have this master meal plan that's forever. That works
she has
so good.
A whole
algorithm.
But it's an algorithm.
So Max is like, well, what if sometime I just want to have steak and I just want to go? And so we just made this compromise. I'm like, well, you can always do that whenever you want. I just have the plan, and we'll follow the plan unless you feel like you need to be spontaneous, and we can do that. So we can do both of it. So, but it helps me to understand, like, I'm happy. I can be content just going through tasks all day, and Max will, he can do that, but it takes him energy, costs him energy to do all that. And then one other thing I wanted to point out, we talked a lot of.
Or you can go through the tasks and then spontaneously kiss me, and then I'm good for.
Good for a long time. Yeah. So. And we talked a lot. We were joking, and it's true that often you'll marry your opposite on there, but that is not always the case, even on first marriages. So there's nothing wrong with your marriage if you're not married to your opposite. So I mean, there's lots of D and C marriages or I and S marriages, and There's probably marriages where you are both in the same category, but even then, like if you're both C people, probably one of them, you'll probably kind of divide and conquer. You'll fit more into one half than the other. So Max and I are opposite on the C and I, but then like both of our second one is D. And then if you like, when we've done the personality test, it's like we're, like the things I said yes to that made me a D person, it was opposite on his. And so, I forget why I was saying that. But even if you have that same, if you're both like a D person, you probably, different parts of that stick out to you more than it does your spouse. So you still are different in different ways.
And no one type of marriage is better than another. There's a wonderful ministerial couple, and very famous. They're both Ds. And so early on in their marriage, it was exceptionally volatile. But they learned how to manage it. And now they have it. Now they're both. Well, it's John and Lisa Bevere, if you know them. They're both high D individuals. They tell this story where well, I won't tell it. Go on.
Okay, so the other thing we want to talk about, we're going to talk about internal and external processors. So this does not always fall specifically into your personality type. So in Max and I relationships, he is the external processor and he's the I person. But that's not always the case, and I would say that this does not follow personality types. This is much more specific to your relationship, within your relationship. So internal processors are people that need time to think about things to know how they feel about them. And thinking about things makes an internal processor feel better about it. Thinking about things helps their anxiety go down. An external processor is a person that needs to talk about things to figure out how they feel about them or what they think about them. And the more they talk about things, the more their anxiety level goes down.
So we're going to talk through, so usually, not always, but usually in marriage, there's one person that's more of an external processor and one person that's more of an internal processor. And this creates a bunch of conflicts. So I'm going to talk through the mistakes the external processor makes, because that's me. And then Molly's going to talk through the mistakes the internal one makes, okay? So here's the first thing the external processors do, is what we want, more than anything, especially if there's a problem, is we want to talk about it. And we feel great anxiety until it is talked about. The trouble is, the internal processor needs time to talk about it, to figure out, needs time to think about it, to figure out what they feel. Now, if you ask me, what do I feel? I'll just start talking, I'll just start saying stuff. And I'll say a bunch of stuff, and eventually I'll get to the thing that's right at the bottom. And then I'll expect you to discount all that other stuff and focus on, because I processed out loud and I came to the conclusion. Internal processors do the exact same thing, it's just they do the part up here in their head, and then they spit out the final solution. The internal processor doesn't want you to see the process because it's messy. They want you to see the final product. The external processor does not care if you see the messy product. That's right. Show your work. Okay, now, but that's actually number 2 there, okay? When you're an external processor and you're married to an internal processor, often the external person will feel anxiety about what's going on in their head because they are not showing their work. And so you're wondering, what are they thinking about in there? Are they being honest with me? Are they just sitting there trying to figure out the right thing to say? Why can't they just tell me how they feel? I know how I feel. Why don't you? And so it's very obvious. This is a very common marital complaint that we get, is that the external processor doesn't I don't trust you. You're not trustworthy. And it's like, okay, well, maybe if they've done a bunch of behaviors that are untrustworthy, I get it. But if all they're doing is processing internally, that's not an untrustworthy behavior. That's internal processing. That is who they are. So you have to accept that. Okay? The other thing you'll do is what we want is the thing to be talked about. And so at some point, Molly will come to me and she'll start to tell me stuff about what's going on in her heart. And I get real excited. It's like, this is the thing I was wanting. Yeah, it's happening. Okay? And so it's happening. And so then I'm like, well, that means I need to say something. And I will interrupt. Or I will jump in before she's done. And when that happens, the internal processor has had to summon all this energy. They've had to work really hard to figure out what they're thinking, what they're feeling, present it in a good way. They want to get through all it. I had to work so hard to do this, and then you interrupted me. And now I have one more thing I have to process. So now I have to go back into my shell and process again. And so this is why an external processor sometimes I'm like, no, wait, I take it back. Okay? I'll stop myself. Please continue. So you have to, external processors, look at me, you have to learn to restrain yourself. Ask the question, is that all you wanted to share? Do you have anything else you want to share? Summarize back to them what they said and say, does that accurately represent it? The other thing external processors will do is badger their spouse. What's wrong? What's wrong? Will you tell me what's wrong? Why won't you tell me? Will you please talk to me? Please talk to me. Talk to me, please, 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 please. We do that until we wear them down. Or like force the clam open. Just show me what's in there. You'll feel better.
There were many fights that we had late into the night because we could just not let it go, ever let it go.
That's right. Yeah, we stayed up. Yeah, I'd badger her all day long until finally she'd open up, and then at 2 a.m, then we're finally having the conversation. When I quit doing that, first of all, we got better sleep. Second of all, eventually the clam opened on its own. And it was like a miracle. Okay, you do your part.
Okay, so I'm the internal processor in our relationship. So there are different mistakes that internal processors make. So one is because I don't want someone else to see all the mess that I'm going through to get to my conclusion at the end. Is one thing is I just never want to talk about the problems at all. And so will never bring the problems up to talk about them because I don't want to talk about them because it's messy, and so I just avoid ever talking about them at all. And so that was one thing when Max and I got better. Well, Max got better about not badgering me, so I was just like, well, I'm just never going to talk about stuff. If he's not going to make me talk about stuff, I'll just never talk about the problems. But that is a mistake because you do have problems and you do have to talk about them. And that goes on to number 2. Sometimes there's a problem, and I don't have to talk about it. I will think about it and think about how I feel, and I'll get over it. And the problem is settled for me. But just because I'm able to do that doesn't mean I can expect my spouse to do that. Max needs to talk about things sometimes, even if I really am good with it. That doesn't mean that he is good. It doesn't mean I can expect him to get to that conclusion the same way I did, because he needs to talk through it. And so I got to recognize that is a need that he has, and I got to be willing to do that, even if it's gets a little messy doing it. And the other thing is when we're talking through this, the external processors are more likely to contradict themselves and talk through things. Like I don't like to do that. I'd rather just wait until I know what I really think about it. And so sometimes when Max and I are talking, like he'll kind of talk in circles. He'll say one thing and then he'll kind of circle around. And I'll hear him doing this with people on the phone sometimes that he's talking to. And like to me, it drives me crazy because I'm like, well, why'd you even say the first thing? Because that's just confusing. Because now you're saying something opposite that, or you're going in circles. But it's not it's just that's how he comes to the conclusion. That's how he gets to the right answer. And so, just because it looks messy to me doesn't mean it's wrong. And I shouldn't get frustrated about that. So.
Is that helpful?
I was gonna say one other thing. I used to work with this external processor, and he was a high I person, and I'd hear him talking to people. So people say, "Well, what do you think my problem is?" And he'd start off, he'd say, "Well, I think it's this," and he'd go through all the reasons why he thought it was that, and then as he's talking through it, he convinced himself that's not the problem. So he'd get to the end, he'd be like, "Well, actually, I don't think that was that was it at all." That's how he got to, that was his process to get into the answer. When people ask me that, I will say that they'll tell me their problems, and then, tell me their complaints, their pain complaints, whatever, and they'll say, well, what do you think's going on? And I'll say, I'll come back to that at the end, because I don't know yet. And that's what I tell them. I come back, and then I'll tell them why I think that at the end. So.
Isn't that interesting? Okay. So we're going to do a connection exercise. This is a real short and simple one. Now, if you're both external or both internal, then you just do the one there. But usually it's one of each. So identify who the external one is and who the internal one is, and then just take turns speaking these commitments to each other. So let's model it. So you do the first one. Oh, you turn your.
Let's do this. Okay. All right. So I swear to tell you about what's going on inside of me, even if it's messy. And I swear to talk about things that you need to talk about, even if I don't feel like I need to talk about them anymore. That's all. Yeah. And I'm going to trust you with the mess inside of me.
That makes me feel really good. Okay. So I swear, I promise not to badger you, not to assume you're thinking evil thoughts about me because you aren't sharing them. I also swear to learn to control myself and not jump in and interrupt you and give you space to share.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. So do something like that. You can use this language and then take a couple minutes to discuss there. Okay? Go for it. All right, go ahead and find a seat. We're going to talk about sharing our inner world, sharing our emotions. If you remember back to the beginning, we said that we have to have two things. We have to have consistent, loving words and actions. So that's what we've been doing. We did the love languages, the DISC and all that, and the internal processor. All that helps us because it helps us understand who our spouse is so we can love them better. But once we've become a safe space for our spouse, once we've driven fear from our relationship through love, then we have to do the intimacy part where we're sharing what's going on inside of us. This is what really builds the intimacy, is sharing our emotions. So, emotions are part of human existence. They're part of our experience. God has emotions. Who's read the Bible? Does God have emotions in the Bible? So the Greeks were wrong about that. Aristotle didn't know what he was talking about. He didn't read the Bible. And so God has emotions. He created you in your image. It's not bad to have emotions. Women are not more emotional than men. This is a fallacy. All humans have access to, have the ability to feel the full range of emotions. It's just that some people are more expressive of their emotions than other people. Now, it is true that often women are more outwardly expressive of their emotions than men. However, that in our country is mostly, a lot of it has to do with our culture. If you go to other cultures, men are far more expressive of their emotions. Part of the problem in America is we have this belief that the only masculine emotion is anger. So what men will do is reprocess other emotions like shame, fear, anxiety. They'll reprocess those into anger because they're told that's the only one they're allowed to feel. Now here's the converse of that. If anger is the only masculine emotion and you're a woman, then that can be hard to tell yourself to feel anger because that's the one that's off limits to you. So women will sometimes reprocess their anger into despair or self-hatred. So I could do a whole thing about that, but I'm not going to. My whole point is just this, is we all have a lot of emotions. We may be bad about identifying or knowing what they are. So we have provided for you a feelings list on the next page. Now you might say, well, that's weird. Well, no, it's not. A lot of times we don't talk about our feelings. We don't have the language. We don't practice. And so it's useful to have this list and read through here, and you can think about whether or not these words accurately describe what you're feeling. When you can label or name an emotion that you're feeling, it helps you process it, and it helps it not have power over you and control you. Okay? So we'll look back at that in a moment. Point number 2 on page 12. To tell someone about your inner world, what you're thinking or feeling, is to make yourself vulnerable. Making yourself vulnerable is the path to intimacy, and as we said, intimacy is the goal of marriage. And once again, all the research says, and the scripture says, if you have close, intimate relationships with people, that's what makes you happy. Money doesn't do it. Carnal pleasures don't do it. Deep, intimate connection to people does do it. Okay? So it produces happiness, health, finance, or prosperity, etc. So for someone to open up about their emotions or even just their thoughts, it's like for people, I have ideas, and like I recognize that they're not all great ideas, but I love sharing them, and some of them I care deeply about, and the ones I care deeply about, they're more scary to share. So I want to share them with somebody I feel safe with. And thankfully, the person I feel most safe with is Molly. So she knows everything I think about, probably more than she wants to know about everything I think about everything. But anyway, when someone opens up, it can be scary. Now, this is the deal, okay? This is what people want. We want the other person to open up to us. But when they do that, it can be hard because the other person is not always thinking and feeling what you think they should be thinking and feeling. And they might be thinking and feeling things that disturb you or that are not pretty. Okay? And so what that means is you have to learn to control yourself in the context of the other person's vulnerability. Because if you complain that your spouse never opens up to you, but then when they do open up to you, you ridicule them, then you're not a safe space. So now I'm not trying to be harsh, okay? God loves you, we love you, your spouse loves you. Nobody does this perfectly. But the point of somebody telling you about their emotions is not so that you can assess the validity of those emotions. It's not for you to sit there and say, well, I don't think you should feel that because A, B, and C. It's not for you to say, well, that's dumb, or that's a wrong way to feel. If somebody is cracking open their chest and making themselves vulnerable, they're not really trying to enter into dialogue about the validity of their emotions. Often they like, for me, like if I share an emotion with Molly, it's like, I'm afraid of blank. Okay, I'm a pastor. I know the Bible says I've not been given a spirit of fear. Okay, I know I know that it's not right for me to feel fear. I don't need her to attack me for feeling fear. What I'm asking for her is for her to be present with me and acknowledge that I have that emotion so that I don't feel alone. What I need if I'm having emotional torment on the inside is to crack open my chest and for you to hear me so I'm not isolated. So the primary goal when somebody is sharing their emotions or sharing something going on in their life is just to validate them, make them feel heard, and say, hey, I get it. I get what you're feeling. Does that make sense? And so this is a big practice. So we're going to teach you how to do it. Okay, and we're going to do an exercise like we do. So the exercise is called the 2-minute talk. And the 2-minute talk goes like this. We'll model it for you. You're going to do it both ways. You both get a turn to talk. One person describes an unresolved situation in their life that makes them feel some kind of emotion. So you say, I've got this going on in my life, and I feel this way about it. Okay, so you crack open your chest. You start sharing your inner world. Explain the situation, how it makes you feel. If you need help knowing how you feel about it, use the emotion list. That's what it's there for. And if you struggle to verbalize it, just point to it. I feel this word right here. Okay? The second person listens with the intent to understand, not respond, not provide solutions. So again, when they're opening up and telling you about their inner world, your job isn't to fix it. Everybody nod at me. Your job is not to fix it. And that really takes the pressure off. I don't need you to fix it. I need you to be present with me in it. So you're listening, trying to understand, and then when the first person's done talking, you let them talk for about 2 minutes. When they're done talking, you summarize back to them what they said and how they felt about it, not critiquing it, not saying why they shouldn't feel that way or how they could have handled the situation better. You just summarize back to them what they've said and how they felt, and then you ask them, do you feel heard? And then hopefully they say yes. If they say no, then, okay, say what part did I miss? and then let them tell you again, and then repeat back again. And the goal in this exercise is very simple. It's just to practice sharing your inner world, and then being a safe space for somebody to share. Okay? So we're going to model it. Molly's going to tell a thing, and I'm going to listen.
Yeah. And we're going to come back to emotions and sharing your inner world after lunch. So this one is really not like a conflict between you and your spouse. So this should be something that you're having emotions out that unresolved, but not like you're picking a fight with your spouse, I guess. So we'll do that.
We're going to pick fights after lunch. So
this is the easy part.
This is the easy part, is practicing. So just talk about something that is unrelated to your marriage.
Okay. So.
Or tangentially related, anyway.
Okay. So, I am frustrated with Esther because she's having a lot of temper tantrums, and I don't remember her siblings having these problems, and so for one, it's hard to deal with it because I don't know how to deal with the temper tantrums when they're happening, because it seems like things that worked good with the other kids are not working with her. So just knowing how to get through the tantrums the best way, but then also, I'm frustrated that she's having tantrums, but then makes me feel insecure. Like, am I doing something that with her that I didn't do with the other ones, or am I not doing something with the other ones that I'm doing with her? And so then I'm insecure about if I'm doing a good job parenting her, because it seems like she's having problems that other kids didn't have. And then it's tiring because we go through a big battle, and then it's like, okay, I think I should do this and not give into our tantrum, and it works the way it's supposed to work. I'm like, okay, we got through the tantrum, but then it's like it happens again. It's like, if we get through this tantrum, she should be, hopefully she's changing her behavior better. And so it's just kind of, I feel like I'm getting worn down dealing with her behavior.
Okay, so Esther's throwing a lot of fits. She's having a lot of temper tantrums. That's making you feel frustrated. Mm-hmm. It's making you feel insecure about your parenting because you're worried maybe we're not doing something right, or we're missing something. And also it's making you feel worn down because you've had to deal with it over and over, and it's like sometimes it seems like we got it fixed, and then it comes back up again. Mm-hmm. And so it's an emotional thing you're having mm-hmm. to deal with over and over. Do you feel heard?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. Now listen, don't raise your hand, but how many of you during that, while she was talking about that, you were tempted to think about parenting strategies? Some of you maybe even thought, I should go up there afterward and tell her how to fix it. Okay? And if you're doing that, no. Okay? That's not what she's asking for. Was she asking for me to fix the problem with Esther? No, because we're working on it together anyway, okay? And we talked through how to do it differently. But what she wanted was for me to be present and hear her emotional distress over the tantrums of our fourth one. Does that make sense? Okay. And that's where, and here's the thing, that's where the conversation ends. You don't then go from there to here's strategies to fix it. You have to become comfortable with the tension of you've got these emotions, they're not immediately going away. I'm going to be present there with you in those emotions.
Yeah, the goal is not to fix my emotions.
Man, that's good. That's good. Not a good word? So her emotions are not a problem for me to fix. They don't have a truth value. It's not whether or not they're right or wrong. They are what they are. And so her expressing them and me validating them, being present with it, hearing them, that allows her to process them in a healthy way, and she can deal with them from there in a better frame of mind. Okay? All right. So here's what we're going to do. Let's have, just based on statistics, let's let ladies go first here. And so, ladies, share something, just like Molly did, going on in your life, unresolved issue, how you feel about it. Men, you're practicing listening. What I was paying attention to as I listened to her wasn't just the circumstances. I was paying attention to the emotion words she used, because I want to use those back to her, because I want her to know that she knows I'm paying attention to that I'm hearing about her emotional state. Okay, and then you summarize back and then say, "Do I feel heard?" And then rinse and repeat.
And we'll give you prompts to switch, but you can switch earlier if you want to.
Yeah. Okay. So start right now with ladies. Okay, husbands, you need to respond back if you're not already. Summarize back to them. Okay, probably about time for the man now to share something going on in his life. Be brave, man. Crack open your chest. How are you feeling? All right, and ladies, if you aren't already, go ahead and be summarizing back to the men. All right, everybody look up here. How'd that go? Not good? Went good? Give me a thumbs up if it was positive, okay. All right, it is now officially lunchtime.
Oh, you're going to say
Hey, what?
optional homework.
Oh, so the optional homework for this, at the bottom of the page, do this exercise at the end of the day, every day for a week. Build intimacy in your relationship. We're not going to show up at your house and ask if you've done it, but if you want to invest in your marriage, that's a great thing to do. It builds, then you just do it naturally. Okay, right now what I'm going to do is pray for the food. And we've got some awesome, first of all, give Laurie a hand. She's running all the stuff back there. And then my mom's not here because she's watching all of our kids and all of Neil and Sarah's kids, but she put together all the food and all that stuff, and Sarah's down there getting it all ready. But we've got awesome sandwiches and soups. Jan made a soup, and we've got some other soup from somewhere. And anyways, we wanted to bless you guys. So I'm going to pray for it. Just go straight downstairs and just get in line. You don't need to wait for anybody. Just grab whatever you want. I think there's cookies and stuff too. And just enjoy fellowship. And we're got to be back up here when? 12:35. Yes, Sarah. There are 4 lines. So we get through. So use them all, please. On the soup's on the back side there. So there's two tables. Go down both sides of each table. That makes sense? Okay. Father, thank you so much for what you've already done thus far, and we just bless the food and nourish our bodies in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. Go eat.